Yeah, welcome to the studio. We are glad having you here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you for hosting me today, and welcome all the viewers of SSBC. You're watching us live from JUBA. I'm glad to be here today to talk about the 16 days of activism and what are being done, what are the activities that we are doing to make sure that we bring an end or reduce the prevalence of violence in our society.
Okay. The 16 days of activism 2020 is the international theme is around the world. The international theme and the local theme is talking about keep the promise.
Yes.
And I see you in orange.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the 16 days of activism has been launched officially on 25th of November. And so far we are remaining with only 4 days. So may you please explain to us what have you done so far and what are the plans for the remaining 4 days?
Well, thanks a lot. I, being the organizing chairperson for the committee for the commemoration of 16 days of activism in WOW, I will actually talk particularly about Western BAHR EL GHAZAL, because that is where I have been involved in doing some activities as far as 16 days of activism is concerned. In WOW, we also launched the same day, which is 25th of November.
Okay.
Like the previous years, we used to do in WOW Town and also in WOW POC. So this time, there's some little bit of changes. We are not able to have a real launch at the POC side, but then we just have like a main activity on the 26th, led by one organization, and some other partners also participated to make sure that we also bring the messages closer to the people at the POC. What
are your objectives according to what you have been planning for the 16 days of activism at WOW level? What were your objectives?
Well, our objectives are specifically derived from the theme itself, the national theme, which is keep the promise, invest, prevent and respond to gender-based violence. We focused mostly on the prevention part, and then that is where we have some activities that started already on the 25th, and the activities are already running through up to the 10th of December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ceasar, you talked about focusing on the prevention measures for against the GBV, gender-based violence. What about the occurred scenarios already existing?
Yes, this is also something that can't be left out. Of course, it is a concern. It is a concern at all levels, be it at the national level or at the state levels. These are all the concerns that are being handled by different actors in the field or in this area of GBV intervention, be response or prevention. So already there are service providers, and I mean in WOW we are working as a coordination, we are working as a team to ensure that while we advocate for preventive measures or for prevention activities to be made available, to involve people who can play important roles in these activities. We also look at how services can be made available to the survivors of gender-based violence.
Ceasar, you have worked in several organizations, particularly in the area of gender-based violence.
Sure.
According to your understanding, why do we have a big number of cases of GBV in South Sudan?
Well, gender-based violence is not something that just started. It's deeply rooted in our society. Different communities have different norms that are governing. And some of these norms give a ground for violence to be perpetrated. And if you talk of GBV, of course, we are not meaning only women and girls. Of course, men and boys are also inclusive. But it becomes a concern for women and girls because they are the most affected people. But simply because some of our norms, our cultural practices, the traditions that we have are encouraging things that normally cause harm to the greater population, specifically women and girls.
Okay, yeah, as you just mentioned, there are some cultures with respect to our various cultures.
Sure.
Our cultures actually somehow encourage or normalize some violence, some forms of violence against women. What do you think we can do to change such harmful cultures?
Of course, when you talk of cultural practices, we are not saying all the traditions that we have are bad. There are some of them that are good and that should actually be maintained or should be preserved. But there are some that are harmful. So it is these harmful ones that we are trying to look at how they can be changed or they can even be removed if possible. And then, as you mentioned, yes, I've been in this field for some time now. And every time we talk about this issue, you know, people talk about, yes, working with the community, working with the community leaders, working with other groups in order to make sure that we end violence against women and girls. But again, coming back to your question of what do we do, I want to focus on each one asking himself, and here meaning men and boys, and also myself, I have to bring it back to myself. It is about attitude. Yes, I can work with the community. What if someone doesn't want to change? What will happen? So it will continue to be there, right? Yeah. So I just want to look at the point of being accountable to yourself. What are you doing that is causing harm to someone?
Okay.
It sounds simple, but it is difficult, I know. Because it comes back to what I enjoy doing, yet it is causing harm on someone. Yes. And then whether I'm ready to leave that thing and to begin doing something different. In such a way, I will contribute to ending violence or reducing violence. And if someone also does the same, another person does the same, like in a community of maybe say 20,000 people, if like 5,000 begin to say, okay, I have to challenge myself. If I used to do this and it is causing harm, I used not to know, but now that I know, let me not do it. That way, then we can be able to realize some changes in our society. Okay,
because the problem comes when people think that the advocacy against the GBV only relies on women. Like we have to do it our own as women. But then you men, you have a big role to play. Exactly. Actually, because convincing yourself that such harmful practices is not acceptable, and when you harm someone is not a good behavior, or to try to change the mindset of people. What exactly do you use in such areas? Because it needs advocacy and education for people to change their mindset. What do you practice to change their mindset as a GBV activist?
Great. Thanks so much for that question. I would have covered it in the introduction anyway. I'm sitting here as an advocate for women's rights, women and girls. I'm advocating for the rights of women and girls. Okay. Of course, I'm a musician. By default, I'm a gospel artist or a gospel singer. And then my experience of being in music has given me the upper hand to be able to create some education and communication materials that can help in passing messages. You know, sometimes the fact that violence is happening, some people are perpetrating it without knowing, even myself. And in this show in particular, when I talk of men, I mean also myself inclusive. So there are things I used to do that I didn't even know they are harmful, right? Yeah, so today that I know them, at least it is now a matter of challenging that behavior in me, whether I'm ready to put these things aside and move on by doing some good things. Then I'm also using the same art that I have, or the same methods of raising, of communicating with the community in order to pass messages so that people who maybe don't know, people who used to think this is the right way of doing things, someone down there will be touched or will be informed that, okay, so this person is talking about this thing which is bad, maybe I need to change it this way. You see the point? So in other words, I'm using music to convey messages on the harmful practices that are happening in our community. Thank you.
Okay. Talking about the bringing men and educating them, that behavior such supporting to GBV is harmful, is not good, it's not supposed to be done, it's not enough. What are you doing to bring men on board to advocate for women's rights? Because when you teach them only and you leave them there, it's not going to go deep in them. But what do you do to bring them on board and make them advocate for women's rights and ending GBV?
Okay, thanks for that question. In some of the activities that I am engaged or I have been involved in, I happen to work directly with men and boys. Of course, my work brings closer women and girls also, but now I have to think of how do we first convey the messages to men and to boys so that they can be able to think of changing. I happen to be attached through some of the activities that we do to some of the organizations in WOW, some international organizations, national organizations, and also CBOs. In our interventions, we are able to bring men, to recruit men. There are different ways of passing information. Sometimes the message is lost if we don't strategize well. For example, if I just go on the street, then I announce, stop violence, don't beat your wives, don't do this. This way we will not be able to measure the impact. So there is this intervention called Engaging Men Through Accountable Practices. So one of the organizations has this program. So as a community activist, I have that privilege to be in that activity for a period of like 16 weeks, you see. 16 weeks is a long period of time, right? These men are recruited within the community, and these are leaders. These are decision makers in the community. These are people who have powers. Initially, it is not easy. I really want to agree with whoever is out there, feeling like this cannot work. But then change is gradual. You cannot speak to someone today, then tomorrow expect this person to change, right? So it is a process to achieve what we call transformational change. It takes time. So this program helps men to come together and they discuss issues that affect women and girls negatively, and also how these issues can be turned so that it can also benefit even the men. So what am I trying to say? I'm saying that if we are able to reduce violence or to stop violence against women and girls, even we become the beneficiaries. Okay. Say, for example, if my wife is happy at home, she's at her state of safe. Exactly. That means she can be productive at home, right? She's not thinking of anything bad. She's focused in doing her activities. That means I also benefit. So the benefits of ending violence is not only for women, it's also for us men. Okay. So we should take that serious. Before we proceed and before we go for a short break, just one question before we go for a break. Yeah. This is a set of very beautiful practices or strategy you are using to eliminate at the end GBV in South Sudan. But what is the number of the wish to states, for example, because South Sudan is very wide. Yeah. Doing these practices only or this advocacy in Juba and in WOW is not enough. Yeah. Are you rushing down to the villages? Actually, this is where the GBV cases are mostly found. They are more in the states. What are your reach to those areas down the deep? Okay, great. Gender-based violence is not actually a small problem. It is a global issue, in fact. That is why, like the 16 days of activism, it is a global intervention to end violence, right? There are multiple approaches that are always employed. And in order to have this carried out, there are also several other actors that I believe are also doing what they can to be able to find a solution to this. Okay. So in different states, I believe there are agencies that are doing the same things, that are also trying to advocate for the rights of women and girls, and also working with the men to end violence against women and girls. But in WOW in particular, there are different organizations, because as I said, I'm talking in terms of a committee for the 16 days, which does not only represent one organization in WOW, but different other organizations there. Because we are only trying to look at the overview of how different agencies are able to bring together their efforts to end violence against women and girls.
Ceasar Lupai, we are still coming back to talk more about the accountable measures on how GBV can be prevented, and people who did can be punished before the law. And with this, our dear viewers, this is still Women Forum. We are going for a very short break. We will be back. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back, dear viewers of SSBC. This is still Women Forum. I'm Aliza Nikadimo. As we are still commemorating the 16 days of activism, South Sudan is of course a part of this, and our national theme is Keep the Promise. With me in the studio is Ceasar Lupai, who is the chairman of the organizing committee of the 16 days of activism. Ceasar, you're welcome once again.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we are talking about the prevention, how it can be prevented, how can people be educated that GBV is a violation of right, it's a violation of human right, as it's a violation of women's right. What are the accountable measures that can be taken? You talked about accountable practices against ending the GBV against women. What are the accountable measures that you are taking in place for people who actually harm women through the GBV?
Well, thanks for that question. In fact, as you're asking, I thought maybe you are trying to look at what are the legal frameworks in ending GBV, but it's okay if you talk about accountable practice at individual level.
Exactly.
You see, as I said before, it is how we can challenge ourselves, especially when you have the opportunity to perpetrate violence and then you decide not to. With due respect, let me talk about corruption, right? Just an example, not really I'm meaning it. If you're saying someone or Mr. X is corrupt, and then you talk about Mr. X being a corrupt person, and for you think you are not corrupt, simply because you are not in that position where you can be able to be corrupt. To corrupt, right? Yeah. Okay. So because Mr. X is having access maybe to the resources or to the money, and then he has that choice, and then he has chosen to misuse the money. Then you will only say that you are not corrupt if you happen to be in that same position. When you choose not to, then you can say you are better than Mr. X. But if I am here and I'm talking of someone who has access to do something, I will not know whether I'm really okay or not, isn't it? So the same way in accountable practice, or how you can hold yourself accountable. The belief in the community is that men have powers, all right? They are decision makers. They are controllers of so many things within the community assets, even family assets, vehicles, gardens, land, and all these things. That gives them even more powers within the community, right? Even within their families. Then it is when you have that chance to do something, then you choose not to. For example, when you look at exploitation, maybe using our powers to do something that benefits us, yet we are causing harm to someone. If I have money and then I get a girl, for example, I take a girl to a hotel. So in other words, if you have access to resources, let's use them in the right way. Let's not misuse them by causing harm on some people. And sometimes it is funny when we think we are giving the person what she likes. For example, a girl might be in a vulnerable situation, and then because of that, I give money and then I ask for sex. This girl or this young lady will not deny, isn't it? Then I will assume that she has given me a consent. She has agreed, isn't it? So I may think it is not wrong. No, it is wrong. Because here, there are power dynamics. This person is vulnerable. She's in need. So why can't you just give her the money and let her go? Why can't you pay her school fees and let her be? Why must you ask for sex, for example? Why must you get something for what you are able to give? So if it is helping, help the person, and then kalas. That's what I'm meaning here. So here we are, holding ourselves accountable. Another difficult task here is our norms in the communities. This one, really, I know it is difficult, but I know if we are the ones, the custodians of these norms, like the chiefs, those who are in power making, I mean,
at the community
they can make decisions. You can say, okay, I know I'm a chief. I know I have the powers to say no to this or to say yes to this, but I just want to decide that let's have something better for everyone, okay? Because what I'm about to do here may affect even other people. So why can't you just decide and then you make sure that nobody is harmed by what you are doing, by your actions. Your actions do not have to harm someone. Okay. That is it.
That's great, but just emphasizing on some point, Lupai, some people throw the blame back to women and girls, and they say that they are the one who allowed the happening. They are the one who made themselves available. They are the one who never resisted. What is your say in this?
I can say no, a big no for that matter. You see, I was in a training, and then one of the questions that we gave to the participants is that a woman can be blamed if she walk on the streets putting on maybe a tight skin or a short skirt or something. So if something happens to her on the road, she's the one to be blamed because she's there advertising herself and calling for men. I say it is our attitudes, because I used to know way back when we were still growing. I'm not saying that time things were okay. I know these things started a long time, but again during our grandmoms or our, the ancestors, people used to walk naked, isn't it? But there wasn't such kind of things. So this is attitude. It is your mind telling you, wow, there's a woman here, just go and attack her. You see that? But again, you can also say, see this woman going? Let her go. I don't want to go and attack her. You see that?
Okay.
So it is you thinking and deciding for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because in some cases, also in some scenarios, you can see a girl, she's well dressed and she's, decent clothes, but she's still go through the GBV kind of practices. But also talking about the encouraging women and girls who go through the GBV, for example, because our cultures actually has projected that talking about such things is a taboo. You don't need to go and report that 1, 2, 3 happened to me, or so and so has done me this way and that way. How do you think we can encourage girls to talk what happened to them related to GBV or any other kind of violence, to be able to bring the people before the court of law?
Yes.
How do you think we can encourage them to be able to talk?
Yes, thank Aliza for this question. In fact, I would like our viewers out there to know, if something happens, I know today is someone else, tomorrow might be you, okay? So, if that happens, first of all, it is not somebody's fault that she has been raped. You cannot choose to be raped, all right? So, if, for example, it happened, first know that it is not your fault, and then you need to be assisted. You need to seek medical attention. And for you to be able to be supported, you need to come out. You need to speak about it. You need to report. That way, you may be supported or you may be referred to receive some services. So, feeling bad about something that happened to you will only exaggerate the situation. What I'm saying here to the people out there is that if something happens, let us not feel ashamed. We don't choose to be raped. We don't choose to be assaulted. Things normally happen, and if they happen, let us come out, report them, and also talk about them so that we can be supported. And then, to those who are there, our role as the community, we are supposed to give a support. We are not supposed to laugh at someone. We are not supposed to criticize someone, to stigmatize someone. No. If something happens, we should always lend a helping hand to someone so that she or he can receive what? Support.
Okay.
Because if you're doing that, we're encouraging them to come out.
Thank you so much, Lupai, for this rich experience of as a GBV, as an activist, actually. Before we come to the end of the program, I have a question. You are a musician, and how do you think we can use the music and art in promoting a peaceful coexistence between men and women, and preventing and even eliminating the kind of GBV activities? How do you think we can use music?
Okay, thanks so much. Coming to music, in fact, there are different approaches of doing awareness in the community. And then, you know, we target different categories of people. Sometimes when we say we are doing trainings, we might only end up recruiting certain age group. That means there are other people who are left out and who are not benefiting from these activities, right? If you say we are only sharing in meetings or in women discussion forums, you see now the girls cannot come and sit with the women comfortably. I'm not saying they cannot come, but sometimes when you mix young girls and their mothers,
I know the feeling.
there are issues that they cannot bring up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you have to look at which appropriate mechanism, which appropriate ways can we devise in order to pass messages to different categories of people.
Okay.
So here, music plays a bigger role. Since I decided to be now an activist to advocate for the rights of women and girls, I say, okay, you know, I have music here. Why can't I modify this so that I can also pass messages to the community? Okay. So for the last 4 years, I have been doing such, and I normally release new songs every 8th of March, and you know what I mean here, Women's Day. Yeah. And then also in November, 16 Days of Activism. Okay. These 2 songs, every year, they must come out. They must come out with messages. Sometimes I customize the messages even to suit the theme. Like for this year, I also have the song for
Keep the Promise.
Keep the Promise, Invest, Prevent, and Respond to GBV. So this is a way of also passing messages to the larger community. Okay. On top of this, I'm also engaging in producing films, short films, but the recent one was a long movie of 1 hour. I believe you guys are having it here, and it is also having all this information on GBV.
Thank you so much, Ceasar Lupai, for the rich explanation and the information. As we are just coming to the end of the program, what is your message as we are going out?
My message, in line with the theme for this year, we should invest. Investing here is broad, but we can make it smaller. We can bring it down to supporting girls in school. You know, when we support girls in school, we are investing, because we will get always the results. We should try to stop doing things that will harm someone, whether what we speak or what we do. So long as they can cause a harm, we should try not to do them. We should be accountable to our attitudes, to our actions, to ourselves. That way we can prevent gender-based violence in our community.
That sounds like a poem.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ceasar Lupai, for having joined us on this interview, and continue doing the best work for women and girls of South Sudan.
Thank you
so much. And thank you too, dear viewers, for having tuned in. We have just came to the end of the program, as we are still remaining with 4 days to finish the 16 days of activism. Do something at your level. With the regards of the working team, I was with you, Alizan Akadimo. Until we meet again, stay blessed. Bye.